everybody. Doug Fowler here from Lasky Talks. And what we decided to do this weekend, if you had availability, was invite Nick Pappas back to our studio / basement / cave and give him a chance to another interview time if he had time. And he did make some time for us today. And so hope you can come and join us. And if not, watch the video later at your convenience. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring Nick online here. Let me transition to Nick. Did it go? Come on. Let's go. No, there we go.
Hopefully we have better luck than we did last time.
Exactly. Well, we got sound going, and I got everything. I did actually sound check before we did it. So how you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good.
That's fair. Look, you've been working both ends of the candle is what it is?
Oh, yeah, and the middle. It just makes things interesting, you know.
Well, I didn't want to bore the audience, those that seen the last the episode, even suffering through the sound. But I prepped a couple of questions myself, and I know I haven't talked to you about them. This makes it kind of fun for me. But as a supervisor and a hiring official for going on 20-something years with the government, I have caught myself with my pants down a few times by hiring people who look good on paper, who look good on camera or what have you, and they get interviewed like nobody's business. And I can tell you firsthand, and those that are watching that know me can probably point out a few names where this happened in my case. And I went against the norm, and I selected the individual, and come to find out when they showed up, they couldn't do the work. Bottom line, their qualifications look good on paper, but they weren't truly qualified, one, and they didn't have the experience. They kind of bloviated over the resume. And my concern, which was last election, and now it still is, the qualifications. What do you think does the qualifications need to be to run the sheriff's office?
Okay, if we look at the qualifications, so to run for sheriff is covered under Chapter 57 of the RS.
Right.
Right, and it's pretty basic. You got to be a certain age, be a resident of the county for 1 year, hold a valid peace officer license, and that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Right, so pretty much you can take a guy off the street that's been an officer, maybe a great officer, but no management or leadership, and say, well, you can run for sheriff. Perfectly legal to do so, right? And what I see in this line of work, now, I'm a boots on the ground type of guy. Been a small town chief, assistant chief, detective lieutenant now, still work as a part-time officer with a local agency, deputy coroner. So what you tend to see in this field is somebody that goes through a lot of training,
right,
and then they'll work it for a very short period of time and say, well, I got experience, I'm good. And what the people don't see is just that. We can throw anything at you, right? And unfortunately, it's hard to vet us as candidates.
Right.
And I don't want to speak for the other candidates. I got a little louder.
Yeah, I did. I can turn yours down.
Yeah, it's all good. It's hard to vet us.
Sure.
It does take some research, but the thing is I've spent 27 years building my resume, and by building it, that's boots on the ground. That's doing the work. I've got a lot of training and experience. I'm fluid in a lot of areas. I haven't done undercover work. I once had a guy I arrested years ago said, man, you got cop written across your forehead. So some of us, we go out there, it is what it is.
Sure.
But when you look at the candidates, I can say, hey, I'm going to eliminate the drug trade.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. All of us can say that. Do we bring the experience to the table? And that's really where we're at. When we look at these candidates, I've got, I'm a licensed generalist instructor with the state of Missouri, peace officer instructor. Generalist, for those that don't know what that is, I don't teach specialties, firearms, arson, that type of thing, hazmat. Generalist teaches everything else from criminal investigations to interview interrogations to crime scene processing, prints, all the other stuff that may come along with it, report writing, down to the basics. I hold an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, and a master's degree in criminal justice. Associate's actually in law enforcement is very centric to law enforcement duties and law. I've taught college for 10 years online, teaching criminal justice and terrorism classes. That's not, I'm teaching people to be terrorists. That was Homeland Security type classes. And you do that by getting fluid in those areas, learning it, doing it, teaching it, and also by teaching, it keeps you current in
Sure.
current processes, techniques, statutes,
Sure.
that type of thing. You know, a lot of candidates say, well, we're going to, and I'm not talking for all the candidates. I'm just,
Sure.
these are generalities.
Sure.
So I don't want everybody saying I'm speaking for the other candidates. But, you know, we can say, hey, we're going to get this money. Well, I've successfully written grants, both federal, you know, and state for a small agency.
Sure.
There's myriad of grants, not just through the state. There's different organizations that offer grants. I've done it. I'm helping another local agency get their grant system back online, getting all the policies and procedures updated. So when you look at it, you know, a candidate can come out of the woodwork, any candidate. I'll even use myself and say, hey, we can do this, but I'm not going to tell you something if I'm not fluid in that area.
Sure.
You know, I'll tell you straight out, well, I don't know. I'd have to do the research and figure out the solution. And that's the biggest difference, you know, when you look at a candidate, they can say, well, I've been a cop for 27 years. I have been a cop for 27 years. I've been a boots on the ground type of guy for 27 years. All of them with leadership. Every
Sure.
position I've held, including current ones, I've never had the luxury of actually just being an administrative position.
Right.
Anybody that says, well, you know, you really don't need to work the road to be the sheriff. Well, you sure as heck better learn what it takes to do it, because you're going to be the man if something goes south.
Yeah.
You're going to have that solution. And if you don't know, you're going to have to know who to go to pretty quick to get the right answers.
There's a be no do.
Yep. And, you know, inevitably, regardless of who wins the office, we're going to make mistakes.
Sure.
Hey, we own it, we fix it, and we move on. We're human.
We got a question from the field.
Fire.
Dewey Resch from Crocker, Missouri. Don't worry, Dewey, you didn't miss it. He's asking, what are your top 3 priorities once you hit the ground?
Top 3, budget, getting the budget under control, making sure we have the equipment and the personnel that we need. Policies and procedures have to be set so these guys can know what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and that makes it really nice and fluid. And third is the transparency with the department and building trust between the community and that department.
Well, yeah, because I was scanning through the sheriff's website, and I was interested just doing some background for your talk and your competitors or other candidates. I was looking for the policies. I figured they might be online public, but they're not. I don't know if that's a rule or not, but it's something I'm going to dig into.
You know, I'd actually have to do the research. Those are long term. I would love to get certified, the agency certified through CALEA, which makes it an accredited agency.
Right.
And when you look, you can go look at a lot of agencies. Look it up, CALEA. You look it up, and you'll find those agencies. Their policies and procedures are published online. There's Missouri agencies that do it.
Right.
They publish every month. Some do it monthly. I think some do it quarterly, the last research I did. They'll put out their use of force stats
Wow.
by officer name.
Really?
Hey, this is who it is. People panic when they see it. Well, this guy's got 15. Well, he may be working a really rough part of town.
Sure.
So, you know, the stats kind of, you got to take them with a grain of salt. But I think getting that information out there and letting the public see it,
Yeah.
and then us being able to explain it, to say the top 3, but the budget, the personnel, retention, training, that all kind of runs in with the budget. You got to have the money to do it, right? Getting the jail straight, getting them certified, bringing them up to speed as far as certifications that they're needed. The jail is a beast in and of itself. It's
It costs like $13 million. It better be.
Yeah, and the thing is, the jail in and of itself is its own beast. I've talked to countless sheriffs, and they'll tell you that it's a hard job. Those guys it is relentless.
Right.
And some days it's worse than being a deputy as far as the people you deal with. I mean, they're under arrest. They don't want to cooperate. But, you know, we're looking at the transparency, retention, recruiting, and the budget. We got to get the budget straight and make sure, you know, hey, are we spending the money where we need to spend it?
That kind of goes back to what we talked to. We'll get to Resch in a little bit. I want to follow up before I forget. But we were talking about qualifications. I guess that would almost go doubly so for the jail.
Yes.
And the leadership at the jail and the personnel there, because they're every day they got to be walking in harm's way almost.
Oh, absolutely. I'm telling you, the JOs, every JOs, every CO or detention officer, depending on what they are, JO being a juvenile,
Sure.
but I mean, that's a dangerous job, man.
Yeah.
You're going into the general pop, surrounded by
Yeah.
countless inmates that are not law enforcement friendly, you know, and you need to give them the confidence and the capability to protect themselves. It looks like the gentleman.
Yeah, Dewey got another question
Yeah.
here. What do you feel are the current shortcomings that are preventing our sheriff department from being the example sheriff department in Missouri or in mid-Missouri? That's probably not being there full time might be hard to answer, but you probably see
Yeah.
some observations.
From talking to deputies, this is again over the years.
Sure.
This is not like right here and now. Retention is a huge one. Consistency in how we operate. You know, they need to know. Okay, I come on. This is what is expected of
Sure.
me. Promotion, career progression.
Sure, we talked about that last time.
Yeah, and so these things are really preventing that. Budget may be the issue, but you know, any candidate would have to get in there, look at where our money's going out the door.
Sure.
But quality of recruiting, and I don't want to revert back too far.
Sure.
But that quality of recruiting is a big one. And putting the right people in the right positions to provide the right management. And even the right people will still have to get some training, undoubtedly.
Sure.
And being the example sheriff's department, it's a rough race. I've seen a lot. I've dealt with a lot of sheriff's department. Some of them are really high speed, but you're talking multi-million-dollar budgets.
Oh, sure.
You know, they crash car. Okay, well, we'll go buy a new one. Yeah. Well, we don't necessarily have that luxury.
Yeah.
So, but budget is definitely a big one, and that's probably where, you know, we'll have to squeeze some pennies and spend it in the right place.
Sure, and you have probably what we called on Fort Leonard Wood fenced-in money, where you're not allowed to do anything but what specifically that money is written for. So you have to manage that probably even more precisely.
Yeah, and I think too is, excuse me, he's talking about shortcomings that are preventing our sheriff's department. I've seen a large turnover, and it's been this way since I retired. It's just a constant, you know, you get people in, you get them trained up, they're rolling along, they're making cases, and they go out the door.
Yeah.
Well, what happens? Now you got to take a full-time guy that's been there, or gal, deputy. They got a FTO, the new person. They may be current in law enforcement. They may be experienced, but they're not experienced in Pulaski County, so they don't know policy and procedures. What do we got to do? How we got to do it? And specifically, you know, are we getting the cases through the prosecutor?
Right. True.
You know, what does our prosecutor? Everybody thinks, well, we can just charge. Well, you know what? Every prosecutor's office is different. There is a tri-county city in this county.
Right.
Deals with 3 different prosecutors in 3 different counties. All
Really?
of them, yeah. All of them wanted something a little different. Mm-hmm. So you got to make sure, hey, are we getting our prosecutor what they need?
Right.
In the format they need, in the how they want it?
Right.
That's a huge thing. You know, another jurisdiction where I work as a detective, it's really a world of difference. You know, and there's constant learning curves on how they want the paperwork done, how they want it submitted, the sequence in which it goes in. You know, they don't do grand juries like they do here. We do prelims, so you know you're planning for that, and then you got to study basically. You know, review refresh your memory. Just you do it for grand juries too.
Sure.
There's to say one thing. Looking at it is a shortcoming. It's a conglomerate of issues that will have to be handled almost simultaneously. You know. But consistency and career progression is a key.
Would you say, now, and Mr. Gibbs will come up here on the 20th, he's going to talk, and I'm going to ask him the same thing. A competition with the local police officers. Now, I know maybe St. Robert pays a little bit more. Is that the truth? Mm-hmm. You're competing, and when there's no money, and pay rates, you just can't compete in that area.
So the smaller agencies, I came out of a small agency, and when you go, and you can go from one small agency,
right?
Pick the surrounding agencies within the county.
Agency, I mean police department, cities.
Police department. And your benefits go from bottom-tiered loggers to top-tiered loggers, and your retirement is going to double. and your pay is going to go up by 10 to 15,000 a year, and you get outfitted with your own uniforms, you get outfitted with weapons, and you get new cars and new equipment. Man, that's hard to compete with.
I don't know how it's done.
No, it is extremely hard. That's why a lot of these small agencies, the towns are struggling.
Sure.
How do you recruit?
Yeah. What do you? Yeah, I can see it standing in what's it called, Nutter Fieldhouse, standing in line, and you're standing behind the desk or sheriff or whoever. What do you got for me? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean they do, and
I'm sure. I'm sure they're doing the best they can.
Oh
too.
yeah, and they got a good crew. They're working, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't quite understand that. I work with the deputies. These guys are dedicated. The agencies support each other.
Sure.
If one needs help, we're coming. So that's not really the issue. But again, how can you go from a small agency, and you might make, believe it or not, I can tell you for a fact, $15.60 for part-time.
Right.
Reserves, contrary to common belief, don't get paid, but they're putting on a uniform and putting themselves in harm's way. Or a part-time guy that might start out at around $16
Right.
an hour with benefits. I mean, to an extent, there's medical and dental and that type of thing, but it may not be as good as, say, the sheriff's department or specifically the larger municipalities locally that have that tax base. The small towns don't have a large tax base.
Right.
A couple of them do have a law enforcement tax that does help offset, but you're still not there.
Yeah.
They've got to grow a little bit. And a lot of these small towns, the officers come out of the academy, right? The cadets, if you will. They come out of the academy. They'll go to the small department. We see it all too often. They'll do a year, 2 years. They'll get their feet wet. And then they're going to a large agency, and it's hard to work. It's hard to compete.
Sure.
You're one guy on duty.
Sure.
You want to get in there, hear things. I'm telling you right now, I'll tell everybody, I'm 55 years old as I sit here, still in the game, still run the road, still answer the calls. And when you work a small agency and you're the only guy on, and you go into a house and there's a disturbance and your backup's 20 minutes away, and county's not much different. They may have deputies on the other side of the planet. It gets a little hairy. So,
Hey, pardon my French, that's a little pucker factor right there.
Yes, it is. So, you got to look at the retention and everything. I hate to say it, everything comes back to budget.
Sure.
And there are grants out there. There's training grants. We'll have to be aggressive at doing that.
Sure.
But, when you look at, I know you said we were talking about qualifications. So when you look at the qualifications, the guy at the top needs to be able to figure that out and funnel it down and address those issues accordingly. And that's kind of where we're at. We're going to have to really get into the weeds of the budget, weeds of the personnel, talk to the people, the personnel, and say, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years or 4 years if you just want to take a sheriff's term, 4 years, and how do we progress it? Give them something to work towards. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to have this issue.
Yeah, kind of like a feeling of ownership with the department. Now here's a question. I think I talked to you about this last election and stuff like that, and we talk about the qualifications that look good on paper. Now, some people that I've seen so far throw out some numbers, some stats, and I can't remember what it was, but how many cases they're on. It's like hundreds of cases and hundreds of this and hundreds of that. Now, I'm a finance guy and a budget guy, and of course we live in Missouri. So if somebody like me or Daryl Todd Marino wanted to check the facts, what's the truth is, how would we go about that?
You can use the UCR, and that'll show the number of cases generated, but that's the number of crimes reported,
right?
Not necessarily what gets through. I'm actually trying to pull those numbers now myself that I will gladly give you. You can publish it to whoever watches your show.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to pull those numbers myself. I mean, short of requesting every probable cause statement ever submitted, that'd be unrealistic probably. But I'm actually working on that myself to get those numbers. And I like hard numbers.
Sure.
I don't like to float numbers saying I worked this.
Yeah.
Now you can say, I think something that's very important when it comes to numbers. We can have a number of reported crimes, right? And sometimes you can't get them through. You can't get the evidence, right?
Right.
Then you're going to have the number of cases that actually get submitted to the prosecutor's office,
Right.
and then how many actually go to prosecution. So even if we submit a case to the prosecutor's office, doesn't mean it's going to go. But what's key is they're going to say, well, you submitted it and it didn't get prosecuted. True.
Right.
But did they use it in a plea bargain for another case that was stronger or something that number? So that's the numbers get a little sketchy.
Yeah.
I don't want to say sketchy, but it can be hard to kind of truly, I don't know how to put it,
To me,
clarify.
Well, not only that, but how to measure that as a plus or a minus. Because I'm looking at some numbers I see being posted and stuff like that. And I said, I don't know what they mean. And that's why I brought it up. So I don't know what you mean. Somebody's telling me they got 6,000 arrests. My budget, my bean counter, well, you got that 6,000 arrests. What's the outcome? You got the initial point. So what was generated out of that? And so I think that helps me out. How many get it prosecuted?
Yeah.
And so I can imagine, I know Kevin a little bit from college classes, and he's our prosecutor. And he's just may not say no or this. I got to higher priorities, and you may put the perfect case together. I can imagine, and he just no, we're not going to do this right now.
I tell you what, this is not intended for his office to support me, but I've worked with countless prosecutors' office, and he has it locked down. They are aggressive,
Right.
they are very fair, and typically, if there is an issue with your case, they don't just say we're not going to do it. He'll come, he'll send a letter, or they'll contact you. Hey, we need X, Y, and Z to get there.
Right.
And then you better produce. Well, if you want it to go anywhere, then do what they ask and get them what they need to follow through. So that's why I was saying, to get it through their office and what they need. And I can't speak for their office because, we're not prosecutors.
Sure.
We do the legwork. We put it together for them, give a probable cause statement. Here we go. Right. But the numbers can get not skewed, but get a little foggy when you look at, okay, I worked this number of cases. I submitted this number of cases to the prosecutor.
Right.
So you will work a lot of cases. Any law enforcement officer will tell you, yeah, I worked this number of cases. But sometimes you simply cannot get the evidence you need.
Right.
And the prosecutor needs. It is the nature of the beast, no matter how hard we work. Then you have the cases, okay, we get those through. And that's where the prosecutor has that discretion, or he may work out a plea deal, right? So it's still being used.
Sure.
It may not get prosecuted, but in layman's terms, it's not going to waste either. Your work's not going to the wayside. You invested that time, and that's what I really enjoy with this prosecutor's office. It will get something.
Right.
It will be used in some means.
I think I talked about what the circle of self-improvement comes back and your community transparency and working with the prosecutor's office. At least it's not a black hole.
Right.
That's good to hear because I've heard nothing but good things out of
and
people I talk to.
And again, a lot of people got, well, I did all that work. Well, that's where that communication comes in.
Sure.
Can we do something better? Did we do something wrong? Again, we're human, and you can make an error. Sometimes it can be overcome by doing, something else to correct it. And that's where that good communication with the prosecutor's office comes into play. Classes, I know the prosecutors has held classes on different topics.
That's so funny. I was just going to ask about that. Sometimes if there's a gap, an operational gap, and training is the cheapest way to overcome that gap if it's failing.
And they will. He periodically, there's something that'll pop up, a hot topic, a new statutory requirement.
Sure.
Like when they legalized marijuana and they changed all those laws, he held training. This is, how we're going to do it. And there's still a lot of learning curves with that. That's a whole nother animal.
Oh, sure.
But I think, from start to finish, we got to give the deputies what they need.
Sure.
Be able to provide that oversight. The guy at the top, yes, the sheriff's position is administrative in some aspect.
Sure.
And in larger counties, more so than here. You go to some agencies in this sheriff's department in this state where we've got, I think it's around 43 to 45 deputies on the post roster here, right? Now, you got to remember some of those may be bailiffs. There may be some jailers
Right,
in there.
right.
There may, reserves. So everybody doesn't need to start panicking. Well, we got 43. Well, they're also filling other slots as
Sure,
well. And
sure.
we talked a little bit about that last time. But that top spot in this county needs to have that experience
Sure,
and be able to fight the fight. Everybody knows I'm very outspoken.
sure.
Sometimes it's more harmful than good, but it is what it is. But I think that top position has to be filled by somebody that's done it. And if they haven't done it, they're willing to learn it,
Sure.
right? Because there's nobody in law enforcement that's done absolutely everything. They can do a lot,
Sure.
and when it comes to qualifications, that's what you need to be looking at. Well, if they said they've done a lot and it's been 10 years, that means they're probably not fluid in anything.
Right.
Or they might be fluid in one piece of it and just basically familiar with the others. So, and then with that, when the sheriff gets in there, we need to be looking at who do we bring in below us, and you got people already in leadership positions. How do we make them better
Right.
leaders and managers?
Sure.
What can we do to improve them, which then is a trickle-down effect, right?
Sure.
So that's really where you need to go. And when you look across the board, and you can take the sheriff's race out of it, you were talking about your job on Fort Wood. What happens when you put somebody in the top position and they're not qualified?
Everything almost ceases. Well, I've been in those positions.
Yeah.
And I've actually been the person, said I was qualified, thought I could do it, and inflated my resume, showed up, and it was like, OMG.
Yep. Oh my gosh.
If it weren't for my staff that I was now in charge of, like 27 people for direct reports, if they didn't handhold me and want the success of the organization, I could have burned.
Yeah. So, what you will see a lot of times is that top position. This is across the board. Sure. This isn't just necessarily law enforcement, but the top position, they'll go and I was looking at questions.
So was I. I got it down here.
It was the bar that I saw move. You put that top person in there, right? They're underqualified. Well, do they really want to bring in somebody super qualified below them? Maybe, maybe not, because that person's going to be a threat.
Sure,
right?
sure.
They're going to be like, man, you're 8 up. So next thing you know, they're they're feeling that threat. So that trickles down. Well, I'm going to bring this person in, and we'll basically fake the funk.
Sure.
Because I'm learning, and there's nothing wrong with learning. Again, you can't speak for every candidate, but nobody's going to know absolutely everything until they get in that hot seat.
Right.
And I've never talked to a sheriff that knew absolutely everything when they got in the hot seat. So, but having the law enforcement training and experience and management and leadership and everything that comes with it, that's what's critical. Make sure, all our reporting is critical. So when it comes to transparency, we can either inflate or deflate numbers when it comes to stats. It's very simple. Contrary to common belief, did I mess up your mic system?
No, that was me. No, you're no black hole today.
Okay, good. But if, let's say you go to somebody reports a theft.
Right.
And I'm just using this in general. And you show up and it's actually a hardcore burglary.
Right.
And you say, well, they reported stealing, that's what I'm going to report it as. Well, your numbers for burglary is going to go down because you're not reporting what the actual crime was. Sometimes they'll say, hey, somebody, again, they stole from my house and it's actually a burglary. When you don't report the right crime, your numbers will go up or down. And it's actually accurate reporting that is critical. And that's what the public needs to see. I've always been one, we should know what's going on.
Sure.
And I'm a member of the public.
Right.
So we should see those numbers and understand this is what's going on. And then we say, well, why can we not address that?
Right.
But if we don't have accurate numbers, and we don't know, I'm telling you right now, I'm not dinging the sheriff's department at all. I'm just saying I'm trying to use as an explanation,
Sure.
we need to make sure that we report those numbers accurately.
Yeah.
And those numbers are public once they get submitted.
And also, it goes to not only transparency but trustworthiness. If we find out later that some department or agency has been inflating their numbers and how great or how bad they are, and come to find out later when they're gone, you get that box underneath you find in the back of the room and say, "What the hell?" I relate. Oh, that's my furnace. Sorry, people. But one of the things I always relate. I go back to we talk and I watch The Wires, like the best cop show ever on HBO. And one of the seasons they inflated the stats so good, they made them look so good, and then they left. What is going on, But I do have a question from a viewer. That was me. That was loud.
Ooh, that was.
A viewer, we was talking last time on my show, and she's not up there, but they was talking about how, and I don't know if this is true or not, but how there have been no prosecutions for fentanyl in Pulaski County. And you may not even be aware of this because you're working over at Osage.
Yeah. I'm part-time for a local officer. I'm going to tell you right now, we have had cases where we have seized fentanyl or fentanyl-laced drugs, and it has got prosecuted.
Okay.
So that, and fentanyl has been around for, unfortunately, way too long.
Okay.
So I don't think that's an accurate statement. That's coming from a single agent, two agencies that I'm associated with. One I was, and another one. So to say they're not getting prosecuted, I don't think that's accurate. The thing is a lot of times, you look at what's being charged, and it may be, possession of methamphetamine or possession of controlled substance, less than 35 grams of marijuana.
And it doesn't actually state.
Yeah, it may not say fentanyl, but the lab tests are going to tell you. When you submit it to the crime lab and it comes back, it's going to say fentanyl. That's where you're going to say, okay, it's they're getting charged with it.
Yeah.
So, you would have to look at the whole case to understand what got charged. And since I've been here, I've had fentanyl laced everything, including cannabis.
Wow.
So I don't think that's very accurate. That's from my standpoint.
Sure.
I can't speak for the other law enforcement.
And if they wanted to know further, I told them best to go down to the sheriff or prosecutor's office to get the true numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk to them, and
Too bad that those stats well, because we were going over the stats that were on your website you posted about the number of deaths. I think it was in 2022, or so it was 38, 37.
Yeah, and we're ranked tied for, without going back and looking, 12th, I think.
Yeah, but on the whole state.
Yeah, that's 12th in the whole state.
I mean, that's just. I seen that stat on your Facebook page, and I said, "There's no way." So I dug in, and you had some lively discussions on your Facebook page about that stat.
Yeah, somebody brought up too. We have a great tendency to drift, but somebody had posted, how can we take the fentanyl problem serious if they're putting Narcan machines up?
Right.
That in and of itself should tell you there's an issue.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is not to alleviate our efforts to eliminate it. That is an effort to save lives.
Sure.
That's what it comes down to. When you look at the actual drug problem, the issue I see from my standpoint, what I do as a detective lieutenant, as a former assistant chief in chief, even an officer now, is how do we know how many ODs there are if addicts are carrying Narcan and using it themselves or their buddy?
True.
Right?
True.
How do we know that?
Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that just yet.
Yeah.
Working on it, don't have an answer. And that happens. I'm telling you, as a position in coroner and deputy coroner, I have gone to unfortunately gone to numerous ODs deaths, and Narcan is present. Well, if you're ODing, you can't necessarily administer it yourself,
right?
And it just sits there. But you see it quite frequently. You see it all the time, and that tells you we got a problem. We should be taking it serious. The fact that we even put the machines out there.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
And I've as far as the spectrum goes with me, the way I feel about it, it's kind of sways because on one side you want to be as hard as you possibly can with about the drug trade, and lock up everybody for life and put them on a deserted island to the point where it's your family member, and you're just hoping or somebody in front of you is dying and you have a chance to save a life. I'm not just going to sit there. And if there's Narcan available, and I just think I'm going to give them Narcan.
Yeah, and we can talk if we get a chance down the road and you invite me back. We can talk more in depth about that. Excuse me, but the drug problem, in and of itself, is something that will have to be aggressively pursued. And,
sure.
I have a plan in place. It's basically almost like a rough draft.
Sure.
But again, sticking to our original topic.
Sure. Qualifications, yes.
I got it. Again, that starts at the top, trickles down.
Sure.
And that's, we got to be there. So, I can tell you, hey, I've been a cop for 27 years,
sure.
and I have. Boots on the ground, started as an investigator, worked in my gold badge, stayed in the field,
mm-hmm.
declined a staff position. I'm not real good with staff work. Sheriff is both staff and field.
Right.
So I can fit real well in there because
sure.
I'm both. I can handle the administrative portion. I've proved it. I can lead. I've proved it. The thing is you've got to put qualified people in from the top
mm-hmm.
down. And just because you say you have a badge,
right,
doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified. Statutory, yeah, you might meet the qualifications
right.
to run for sheriff, but are you really qualified to be a sheriff? Just
right.
no different than, yeah, you went to med school and now you're a full-fledged doctor. Does that mean you're eligible or qualified to run an ER?
Right, right.
Probably not, but I'm really kind of talking out of my lane when it comes to Medfield, but to make that analogy. So, as a candidate, that's one of the things I looked at, before making that decision,
sure.
and then said, okay, here we go. Let's, we need somebody qualified in there. And, I will stack my resume and my work ethic,
mm-hmm.
my capability against anybody. So
well, hopefully we'll get a chance to do that. That's why I'm working aggressively with the Waynesville election.
Yeah.
This is the mayoral race. Maybe have a debate of some sort where we'll host it on our show. But I want to go back to one last question about
sure.
qualifications. Now I was looking at yours, and of course I look at the rest. Now, what's your opinion as far as the importance of education? Now, to me, I'm going to tell you my opinion. To me, an education, whatever degree you got, it proves that you can do the work, or you have the capability to go beyond what you were. It doesn't make you qualified, but it gives you something, a toolkit. What do you think?
And that's so I have 2 master's degrees. One is criminal justice,
mm-hmm.
And then one is environmental management, like I talked about last time, which is half science, half environmental science, half environmental law. With the education, it gives you all the background when you talk about broken window theory
mm-hmm.
and techniques for policing, communication, leadership. All those things come up in that education. So it gives you a background to fall on.
Right.
Education also gives you the research capability, the writing capability.
Yeah.
Not only that, the connections, to be quite honest, when you're going through education,
sure.
your instructors, your background,
yeah.
Because you learn more than just textbook.
Right.
You have experts that come in and teach, and that type of thing. So there's a lot to be said about the education, but the education gives you the foundation.
Right.
I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I was thinking that or baseline, or so baseline, because.
Yeah.
But I've now going back to hiring. My experience, being on the manager, I had somebody with a PhD but showed up and literally couldn't do the work. It meant they could research it all day long, but when it come down to tactical versus strategic, just couldn't operate. Couldn't operate.
There was a university. It's not a local university, so nobody has to panic. But there was a doctor there, a PhD in criminology and forensic science, and it was at a seminar I went to, and what was interesting was extremely knowledgeable.
Right.
They could tell you textbook, put them in the field.
Right.
Well, no, this is what you do. Look, it's raining, it's pouring down. You don't have a tent. You're using a tarp to cover your scene.
Right.
Whatever. So it's not CSI. We do not get those perfect, contrary to common belief, the deputies do not get those premier crime scenes where everything's laid out, nice thumbprints on windows, they can get it. These guys are not working in prime conditions.
It's not a TV show.
Not at all. So the education will give you that foundation,
Mm-hmm.
but then you got to be able to take that textbook and put it into reality, and you got to be able to blend those
Right.
to meet the needs of the public. Everything comes down to the needs of the public.
Sure.
Because, well, we're public.
That's right. But you also live here.
Yes, that's what I mean. I'm public.
Yeah,
I live in this county. So.
And what's cherry picking? Is that a problem, do you think?
As far as what?
Personnel. Now, I got the police chief right down the road for St. Robert. Got police chief in Waynesville may have better, more money.
I don't really see that as a problem. I mean, we are very fortunate in this community. Contrary to common belief, every chief's going to tick off somebody.
Sure.
The sheriff will tick somebody off. That's the nature of the beast. But it's, they don't necessarily recruit from other agencies.
Right.
Somebody may be looking and say, and one of the officers say, "Hey, we're hiring."
Right.
But as far as actually coming down trying to pluck people out,
Yeah.
no. But in the same token, again, you can't blame a deputy if
Nope.
they go into another agency and they're getting paid more and better benefits, that type of thing.
Well, of course.
You can't blame them. But no, it's that stair step. But what is critical when it comes to recruiting and retention,
Mm-hmm.
you can do more with 3 really good people than you can 10 slugs.
Oh, yeah. I concur.
Because what happens is you'll get 10 people out there, they can't get squat through, and then you're killing the other 3 really good ones to get it done on top of what you need them to do.
They're going to bounce.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, man, the boss is killing me.
Right.
He's working me to death because they're picking up the slack for the other 10.
Right.
And that's where that recruiting comes in. And once you get them in, treat them good, be consistent in your leadership and your management. You don't want to keep changing things up every day unless there's statutory changes.
Sure.
But that's a big thing. And it is hard to compete with the cities here because, well, let's face it. Look at their equipment. Look at,
Oh, sure.
especially for municipalities. It's hard to recruit when you're not,
Yeah.
you can't afford it. And it's not the city's fault. Everybody's like, oh, you're beating up on the city. No, it's just money. It's taxes. It's what the city can afford.
Yeah, and what the county can afford.
Exactly. So, we might have to pinch pennies here for a while.
Yeah.
But, we got to, when I mean pinch pennies, I am a firm believer. I'll put every flipping receipt out there for everybody to see. I don't care.
Yeah.
Most cities have a report, and they show where all their money's going.
Yeah.
All people got to do is ask for the report,
Right.
the council report. Hey, here's all our expenditures and our money. Get involved and ask.
Yeah, that's right.
You got a question for me? I'm the sheriff. Open door policy. Give me a call. We'll be busy. Doesn't mean I'm going to get to you that day, but I'll get to you.
Yeah.
And then, you get mad at me, yell at me. I'm used to it. I'm okay with that. I expect people to get aggravated.
Right.
When they're not getting answers. Again, that comes back to, transparency and communication. So
That's
that's
awesome.
kind of where we're at.
Well, I don't have any more questions. I'm going to open it up. We got a couple viewers out there, and if anybody wants to call in or text in a question, Dewey's got the road. He took the board and ran with it. But
Yeah, it did.
phone number's going across the screen below. I'm going to wait for it to pass 573-408-0339. If you want to call in, everybody can talk to you.
Is that a dedicated number you did?
That's a dedicated track phone, baby.
You're dedicated.
I'm not giving out my private number.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
They'd be lining up to give them my number.
Yeah, it's all good.
That's all good. But anyway, I appreciate you coming in again.
Yeah,
I know
appreciate the
I know you
time.
don't have all day, and make sure we don't have any calls. Let's give them 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. You need to put a disclaimer on your screen, too. When you have any candidate from any office come in here, that does not mean that's the team they support. I actually I'm a big sports
That's a
guy.
baseline. That's what I call it. Come on the show. It's a baseline.
That just hides everything back there, right?
It doesn't look at all like a tiger. But even though Mizzou was awesome, beating Ohio State, Mizzou was awesome.
What is it, Iowa?
That's Iowa,
Oh, okay.
and they suck. They suck. They really.
Why don't we just say it how it is?
I'm going to be blunt. Paying $8 million for mediocrity mediocre. What was that movie? Whatever it was. But yeah, the boss in the house. We've got some curtains. We're going to try to improve this a little bit, make it look quasi formal Joe Roganish type. So
Hide all your toys.
I hide all my podcast toys. That's for sure. Well, I don't see any. The lines aren't buzzing up. I don't see any phone calls ringing. So we're going to hang it up for the day.
All right.
Appreciate you coming in. And before I hang up, I want to let everybody know we got Riva coming on at 3:00 to talk about her new book. Check out our Facebook page. And if you want to be a sponsor for the show, make sure you email me on the post or on the Facebook page if you want to be a sponsor. I didn't get a chance to put our sponsors up on this page, but we'll put them on next time. And I appreciate those that are supporting it. It takes a little bit of nickels, a couple of nickels to post all this stuff up there. And I appreciate all the help I can get. With that, we're going to log off.
I appreciate you.
Let's see you next time. Just let us know when we can help.